One of the things I always found very appealing about practice from the Anapanasati Sutta is that it's like such a unified practice. It's not like, right, now you do, calm abiding, tranquility, concentration. I know you hate that word, shamatha practice, and then now you do vipassana practice. It's kind of like very integrated. That's my understanding. And that there are perhaps moments when one is more emphasized than the other, but the potential for both is kind of there throughout, and it's deliberately cultivated together. But I suppose maybe the last couple of months, I have emphasized the tranquility and the shamatha kind of aspect of it. And I think I realized, sort of reflecting on my practice in the last few months, I've been so involved in the second tetrad. I've been, especially the first two steps, the joy and the happiness, and just like, I feel like the last few months has actually kind of like quite deeply reconditioned me in a way, because the last couple of months I've spent, an hour a day flooding myself with this joy and tranquility, and it's been pretty good. But then we've spoken a few times about, right, what do you do with that from there? And you said, and you said it a few times, and I've tried to take it on, and it hasn't quite happened. But then I think very recently, I'm starting to understand what you mean a little bit more. You said, talking about what you attend to. So you kind of, perhaps you allow the intensity of the jhana, of the joy and the happiness, perhaps it subsides a little bit. It's not quite so intense. You leave it there in the background, and then you kind of wisely attend to what is going to bring you out of that state of satisfaction, or what will enable you to stay in it. And sometimes that made sense in my practice, in the moment, in sitting, and sometimes it didn't make sense. And then the last few days, I've been looking at the sutta itself, and I read looking at the sutta itself, and steps 7 and 8. They never really made sense to me, because they seem to be speaking about the mind, mental formations, whereas it's supposed to be that tetrad is all about the feelings. But then suddenly,
that's a problem with that word sita. Is that the sita does not it translated into English as mind,
but it can easily mean heart.
Well, it actually does, and in the Thai they use the word jai. Yeah. I've actually checked this out. All right, because that's one of the places where they miss it. Why would then they put sita nupassana as part of the Vedana nupassana?
Yeah.
The answer is because the word sita has more than one definition. And that the definition that we should generally look at is, there's another word for the kind of mind that we would want to think of as mind when we're using it purely as English.
Mana.
But in the mana, exactly. Yeah. Manut, which actually gives us man and humanity.
Mm.
That's what it's pointing at, is that becoming human means that we're no longer living in feelings as the primary driver. That now our primary driver is wisdom. And so basically the Anapanasati Sutta, then, that you're talking about, step 7 and 8, is the word that's put into the English is conditioner, to where in fact what we're talking about is that old bunch of stuff that is our past feelings, as opposed to the new feelings that we can have, to release us from those old sankharas, to have the kind of feelings that we want to. But let's back up just a bit, back up to that whole Anapanasati Sutta, because there's an important point in there. And that is that as he starts, actually, first off, the sutta introduces the situation, and then the Buddha introduces Anapanasati. After the first thing that he introduces with Anapanasati is this, that it is of great fruit. It is of great value. And he has already talked about who is here, including the Jhana dudes and the meta dudes and this and that. And he says, and we're talking now about Anapanasati as if to try to gain the audience attention to start to practice a new way. And that is that it's of great fruit and great value. And then he says that we practice Anapanasati for the fulfillment of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. What he means by that is we're practicing Anapanasati to get insight into or get in touch with or come to understand the body, the feelings, the mind, and the mind's objects. Therefore, Anapanasati is broken out into that. And then he says that we're practicing Anapanasati for the fulfillment of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and we practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And if you think about it deeply, this is the second noble truth. The 4 foundations of mindfulness is actually the discovery of the source of suffering, which means that it immediately goes into the 5 aggregates, and from there it goes into the full teachings of Anapanasati. So now we collect that together and we begin to see, okay, we got a whole package deal when we're talking about the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And so we're using Anapanasati for the fulfillment of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which means we really do figure out the mind because we've got a really excellent map called the Paticca or the Paticca, which is actually basically a story of how the mind works, so that you can see how the mind winds up in suffering, and you can decide at what point you're going to change that course or direction so the mind doesn't wind out in suffering. And Bhikkhu Buddhadasa makes a big point of it, and I didn't know where the sutta was until finally I found it in the suttas in Dingha Nikaya number 15, where it's the feelings is that point. So that if we have wisdom at Pasa, at that point of contact, then we can decide what feeling we're going to have. But we actually practice that in Anapanasati is that we begin to experience how we can transform the feelings, not just any old time we want to it, but in fact practice it so that we can get it down, so that we know how to do it. Okay, so the next part of the sutta then is that we practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness, including all of these things. We do that for the fulfillment of the Sambojana. Now here the Sambojana is stated differently because in the Satipatthana Sutta, this is the place where the 4 Noble Truths and the 8-Fold Noble Path are talked about, but in the Anapanasati Sutta instead, he talks about the 7 factors of enlightenment. That looks like a contradiction. Until you understand, no, the 8-Fold Noble Path is the path to the Sambojana when you get a new word introduced. And that new word is, and the best that we have in English language is unremitting or repeating. In other words, it keeps coming back and keeps coming back and keeps coming back. That's what that we're looking for. And that the first factor of the Sambojana is unremitting mindfulness. That's it. That's one of the reasons why I keep harping on it, though I don't talk about that particular point, but that's the first factor of enlightenment. is when we have unremitting mindfulness. Well, guess what? Mindfulness or sati is one of the aspects of the path. That's it. And now we have to get it towards unremitting. Keep coming back. This is the practice, not getting it and then getting a jhana and then getting a deeper jhana and then getting another jhana and then another jhana after that. And some of them have a list that goes way up there into the high numbers. All right. But this is, in fact, what we're looking for instead is this unremitting mindfulness. And that gives us then the possibility of unremitting investigation. In other words, keep looking. Well, that factor fits precisely into the path as, in fact, right view. The right view is to keep looking. If you actually read the definition of right view, it's got investigation factor on the path. But when it's an enlightenment factor, it's unremitting. Now we're seeing how this stuff fits together. The next item on the Eightfold Noble Path there is right effort. But the third item on the 7 factors of enlightenment, the Sambhojana, is unremitting energy. Now our effort becomes effortless, and that we've actually become eager to do it, as opposed to reluctant but need a little push. It's almost now we've got to the point that the car, we've got it pushed off, but now it's rolling down the hill. There it goes. It's got its own energy now. Okay, so now that we're seeing that that's there, then the next one is talked about unremitting piti. And the actual Pali word is piti, to get oneself into that state of joy. That's an enlightenment factor, is to get really happy, really satisfied, really relaxed. And in fact, the word relaxed would then come next. That's the 5th factor that is often translated, mindlessly translated, as tranquility. But a much better word would be peace. But the easy way to look at it is just relax, which is also cool off. And so you see then that the 7 factors of enlightenment is the fulfillment of the Eightfold Noble Path.
So what's the Pali word then for that last factor?
I'll have to go look it up.
Okay.
I'll send it to you later.
Okay.
I know exactly where to find it, but I don't remember it right off.
So really then the 7 factors of awakening are sort of a recapitulation of the Eightfold Path.
Eightfold Noble Path in its actual fulfillment.
Because I find it's very interesting, isn't it? Within the Buddha's teaching, there's like so many capitulations of things. You know, it's astonishing, really. You just, for me, it kind of reflects. It probably reflects the fact that he was teaching for 45 years, and he was teaching different people, and it probably reflects his skill as a teacher. That when teaching this group of people at this time, he found this way of formulating the teachings. And when teaching this group of people at this time, he found this way of formulating the teachings.
Actually, I would say that over the 45 years that he evolved also. An example of that is that there are things in the Paticcasamuppada that is kind of a list or a breaking down of stuff that's in the really early suttas, like the Sutta Nipada, but it neither mentions the word Paticcasamuppada nor does it give the complete list.
So suggesting that was a kind of refinement or development that occurred later in his teaching life.
Right.
Yeah.
So where we do know that the Anapanasati Sutta was really late.
Which suggests that it's highly refined.
Exactly so. And pointing in specific directions. But wait, there's more. There's another set of knives in this drawer. And that's in fact the reason that I started that. And that is that we practice the 7 factors of enlightenment for the fulfillment of something else. And that is knowledge and freedom, or moksha, ditthi, and moksha, freedom. That is also, Bhikkhu Bodhi translates it as deliverance. But that deliverance would be the way that one would be delivered in a raft going down a river. But the word deliverance is not really the same that we're looking for, but it is that dual combination of knowledge and deliverance, or knowledge and freedom, or knowledge and relaxation or release, is also at the end of the Great 40. And in fact, the Eightfold Noble Path is that which is discussed. And at the end of the sutta, knowledge and deliverance are added as factors of the path. Because they also happen along the way.
So is knowledge and deliverance sort of synonymous with awakening?